This is spoilers for Saltburn, a movie we were pretty split on. Before we get into it, need to remind you, since this is a spoiler discussion, if you don't want to be spoiled, then you probably should not be listening to this. So if you fit in that category, then hit pause, come back to it later after you've seen the movie. If you have seen the movie and you just want to hear open and honest discussion about it, then listen on. Or maybe you haven't seen the movie and you don't care about spoilers. You could listen on in that case as well.
Yeah.
Saltburn. What do we have to spoil about this? I guess maybe Oliver's character, right? That's the big turn in the film.
Yeah. And that is a turn I did not believe.
Oh, you didn't believe it?
No.
Even when they gave you like flashbacks and stuff?
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, like, I believe that it happened in the movie because it showed me that it happened in the movie. I just don't believe that the character that we were presented actually would. It seemed like a turn. It was an unbelievable turn for that character.
Now tell me more about that.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Okay. So the whole movie.
First summarize like what the turn is. For
all right. So yeah. So like Oliver essentially becomes obsessed with Felix, right? Like you get this sense. He keeps saying through voiceover, "I love him. Am I in love with him?" So there definitely is like this weird obsession with Felix. And throughout the movie, people within the household start dying. And then it's revealed at the very end that
oh, you're talking about a different twist than I thought you were talking about. I thought you were talking about the wealth like his upbringing twist.
No, that I found believable.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I saw Oliver as this pathetic character that as he was presented as. He's this loner, he doesn't make friends. He does find this quick friend who he gloms onto, and he's like, "Oh, this is my new friend now." And right, and he gets a little clingy, a little obsessed. We go into Talented Mr. Ripley area. He tells a story about how his dad died because he was probably drunk, and his mom's on drugs, and he doesn't have any family. And there is this moment where Jacob Elordi takes Oliver to see his mom on his birthday, and Oliver's really uncomfortable with it. And you realize it's because Oliver lied about the entire thing. His parents are alive. They live in a nice house. He has siblings, which he never mentioned. And that was the moment where Felix turned on Oliver. And I thought that was all earned. I'm like, yes, I see Oliver as this pathetic character who just wants to be loved, who wants to create sympathy around him. That I bought. Then at the very end, there's like this weird series of like Oliver's confessing to Rosamund Pike on her deathbed, like, "Oh, I was behind the whole thing." And it shows all these ways of like how he lied about how much money he has, how he deflated the tire, how he was involved in these deaths. And it seemed to present it to me. It was presenting it like he was jealous of their wealth. He wanted to become them and had this plan to kill them all to be then become like in charge of Saltburn, the Lord of the Manor. And that I did not believe from this character at all. I believe that this character is that pathetic loser who could kill out of obsession, but not who had this whole grand conniving plan to like rise the ranks through the family, gain people's trust, and then knock them all off. Like that turn for me did not work whatsoever and didn't jive with the character we presented with. And I know sometimes you get movies where there's a twist and you're like, oh, there's a whole unreliable narrator. You're like, oh, this character is not what I believed him to be. But I think it's a case where when those work, you can look back and say, oh, I see hints of this throughout the movie, how this guy really was this way the whole time. And in this movie, I didn't see any of that. I saw the pathetic character who all of a sudden, bam, is now this mastermind.
I mean, I definitely didn't read it as like, from frame one, he's this guy who's trying to infiltrate Felix's family and kill them all so that he can inherit the property and the fortune. I read it more as he's a manipulative guy who can't make friends, sees an opening with Felix, finds out who Felix is and that he has money, goes to stay with him, enjoys that lifestyle, is enjoying the lifestyle until he's found out by the Felix character. And that's when the killing happens because he's like, they're going to kick me out. like, this guy doesn't like me. There's no saving this. And so from that point, he kills Felix,
Which make
and
which
then he
that
kills the
makes
sister. Like, as people catch on to him in the early days of the killing, he's like just killing people who are onto him, basically.
the killing of Felix made sense for the character out of this obsession, this betrayal. If I can't have you, no one can.
Mhm.
It was then okay, let's keep going with this and let's kill everyone and then get my name on the will or whatever it was.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
I do completely agree with James.
Okay.
In that I don't think that was his master plan from the beginning. It kind
Okay.
of developed. But let's look at the orders and the deaths in order. So the killing of Felix, I think, was motivated. That made sense to me, right?
I agree. I agree with that one. Yes.
Then the killing of Felix's sister was the next death.
Venetia. Yeah.
And yes, and she had basically pegged him. She's like, "Why are you here?"
Right. Yeah. She calls him a moth, right? Like,
Yeah,
like you're
totally.
attracted, which I agree. Like, I agree that Venetia figured him out.
Yes.
Venetia also figured out her brother, because she mentions like, "Oh, you're more fun than the guy from last year." And it seems like
Yeah.
her brother has this habit of like finds a new Klingon, not the Star Trek thing, a new Klinger for a year, and then disposes of a new plaything, and then disposes of them when he's done with them.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
So I feel like the killing of the sister was not some master plan. It was motivated by he's been found out or pegged for who he really is.
Okay.
And if that killing doesn't happen, then he's lost, right? And then he leaves Saltburn. He's done. He doesn't kill anyone else. He is gone from Saltburn. Years pass, and then the father dies. And then he comes back. So he's had years after the events of this movie to think and stew and change as a person and that kind of thing. And that's when he does this third and last killing, which is of the mom. And that one, I think, is a much different character. The person who's able to do that is a much different character than we've seen in the whole movie. But you have to remember, there's a decade removed between him and the whole movie. And the first two killings, I feel we can agree on, are relatively motivated. The third one is the one that feels out of character. But again, he has changed in character a ton off screen, and we know that.
Yeah, I guess maybe I used the word mastermind before. Maybe that was too broad. Like, right. I don't think from day one he met Jacob or whatever. I keep calling him Jacob. Felix. And then said, "Oh, I'm going to kill him, take over his family." Maybe that was. It does kind of present it as like this whole like, here's my plan with the cuts to the money and to the thumbtack and everything. I thought that was a little clunky. I guess in the moment I did not see. I see your point, Zach, of like, okay, it's been a decade. You know, he learns that Richard E. Grant has passed away. We see that he's, like typing gibberish on the computer, that he planted himself there. For me, I didn't see any of that development, that change. So it seemed a little out of left field.
I think he got a taste. He got a taste of the good life.
Yeah.
Then taken away. I really think that the cousin character was a huge catalyst for all of this.
Yeah.
Because the cousin character really was sticking the knife into him, and saying like, you are a tourist and you will be gone and you will never get this back.
Yep.
And I think he saw the cousin character as kind of a peer. Like, we're on the same level. If you can do it, I can do it, kind of a thing. And the peer was like, no, I'm above you. And so Barry Keoghan was like, well, I'm going to show you who's above who. I think that was a big part of it.
Okay.
One little detail that I liked, and there was a few throughout the movie, is, it showed him like this little 5-10 second clip at night looking at a book about Saltburn. Like there's a whole book about this house, because it's so old, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then in a later scene, he's saying how much he admires some vase that's in the house and like the artist that makes the vase. And like, he doesn't know anything about that artist who makes the vase. He read it in the book and is pretending to be a big fan in order to like be in the good graces of the dad. And I like those little details of how he's manipulative in these like, interesting ways.
In the early scenes when you're supposed to think he's a sympathetic character.
Right.
Type of thing.
I guess maybe if I'm still forming my thoughts here, maybe I didn't buy him as being as manipulative as the movie presented him to be.
Okay.
I really saw him as just this pathetic moth character. And then the movie says, oh no, he's been more manipulative than you think. I had trouble buying that because it's a late reveal, right? We can agree that it's sort of like the last 5 minutes of the movie, you're revealed this larger thing that was going on. Granted, we saw him be manipulative with Farley, so it's not that it's like unearned ever, but just to get
he was definitely manipulative with Venetia too. Like the moment when they're outside of his window, you know, on the bench, and they're discussing what their attraction to each other or whatever, and he turns from like nice guy Oliver to like giving her commands and stuff like that. You're like, that was the moment to me where I was like, oh, all right, there's like way more to this guy than just a desperation for friendship. Like he likes controlling people, that's clear. And he's used kind of the sheepish, I'm a normal guy and you're the rich people type vibe so far to make those manipulations, but when he needs to take a different tactic, he can lower the voice and become domineering and push people into things as well. I also want to get y'all's take on the death of Venetia, because they definitely don't show what happened, right? Like the death of Felix was like he gave the guy a bottle that was probably poisoned and the guy died, right? With Venetia, she's alive when he sits next to the tub with a razor blade.
Yeah.
And so did he convince her to kill herself? Because there's also no sign of a struggle.
Yeah.
In her death scene.
I think he did it. I think she was passed out because she was pretty drunk already. Like they showed a bottle of alcohol next to her on the tub. So when he talks to her, she's obviously awake and alert, and that's when she kind of pegs him.
Okay. Because he was giving her commands before, and she was doing them.
Yeah.
So I was curious if like they were playing into that too, like he instructed.
No, she was
her
over
to do
him by
something.
this point.
Yeah. I think he did it. I think while she was passed out in the bathtub, he did it.
But if she was over him, why wouldn't she just burn him? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't she go to her parents? And like she's even in the tub that's like between Felix and Oliver's room. Like that's not even her tub to take a bath in. She's clearly like toying with the fact that he's still there and she wants to talk to him. She's drunk in the bathtub.
I think that she is very much in trauma and shock and not thinking clearly and drunk and dazed and
sure
nothing is no signals are firing normally.
But you think that it's not a possibility that he convinced her to kill herself?
Yeah, I think it is possible that he's like, I'm just going to leave these razor blades here and
you do
see what happens.
Do.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's more probable that he just did it himself.
Yeah.
But short of the throat pipe moment at the very end, he is pretty passive in his killing.
Well, I mean, giving someone a bottle of poison is
not strangling them or cutting.
I wouldn't describe his character as passive.
Yeah.
I'm saying like it's not a hatchet to the head 10 times. You know what I mean? It's like very
yeah, it was just smart.
Handing somebody a bottle and walking away. I'm not saying I'd do it. I'm just saying on the level of like how violent the actual act is, it's pretty low.
I would say he's a pretty clumsy murderer, and I'm surprised he got away with as much as he did.
Mm-hmm.
Because the poison thing, I'm assuming, unless the family, we don't see there's an autopsy or anything like that. Like this movie doesn't really care so much about the legal repercussions of what he's doing, and that's what that's the movie's business. Like the poisoning way, it's people figure out, coroners figure out pretty quickly, oh, they died of poisoning, right? It wasn't alcohol poisoning, like he was poisoned. And you can pretty put two and two together. The last person to see, the last person with Felix was the Barry character, and then he ended up poisoned. The razor blades, he just brings in like holding with his own hands and then sets them down or uses it himself. So like there's fingerprints right there. And then ripping an intubation tube out someone's throat. Like you're gonna call the doctors in and like, oh, she died. And they're like, oh, how? Did her intubation tube fall out?
Again, I'm going to disagree on a few of those. First, with the Felix killing, and tell me if I misread this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think that he poisoned him. So if I missed something, let me know.
I think he did because he hands him the bottle. But like we see this in the quick flashback. We see Felix drink from the bottle, and then we see the Barry Keoghan character who also drank from the same bottle make himself throw up.
I got that he poisoned him too from that same scene.
I
'Cause
gotcha.
If not, like I at first thought that the Felix character was like maybe bludgeoned from the back of the head, which I'm like, well, that's even clumsier because there you walked in there with this big bottle, but they never really show Felix's body.
Gotcha. Okay, so what I took it
Okay.
as, and again, this could be wrong, because making your like throw up, like vomit, was like a symbol in this movie, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
it came up a lot, and sticking your fingers in your mouth and that kind of thing was like a symbol in this movie.
Okay. Also, don't vomit by the crime scene too. That's a bad idea to leave a trace of DNA there.
What I assumed happened was he got him drunk and then got him drunker, and like once he had passed out, like positioned his body so that he would choke on his own vomit, because that was almost foreshadowed by how he described with his mom having to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be. But
The mom thing's a lie though. Like he didn't have to do that with his mom. He
Right,
didn't
so
have
it's
to
in
make
his
her
head.
throw-
But I'm saying it's in his head.
Yeah.
It's
also the
that's-
vomit thing could have just been he was trying to make sure he didn't get too drunk.
Exactly. Yes. He
I-
had very strong alcohol in there, got him really drunk, and then poured alcohol down his throat and positioned his body. I think that's cleaner than poison.
I think
And
it was,
there's nothing. We never saw poison. There's no reason to think poison except you think he couldn't have died otherwise.
But
But
it's-
if you think that is like foreshadowing this idea of like choking on your own vomit, vomit is absolutely a symbol in this movie.
It's
According
just
to
very interesting that
Wikipedia-
both James and I interpret it
Yeah.
as poison.
According to Wikipedia, which is the bastion of truth, as we all know, cannot be wrong. He orchestrated his final meeting with Felix at Oxford and was the one who murdered him by poisoning his drink after his final rejection in the hedge maze.
All right. So now we know if
According to Wikipedia, it's all poison.
But Zach,
Whew.
unless I'm not gonna watch this movie again. So and like unless they said at some point, and then I poisoned him.
you're just going to fast forward to the last scene.
Right, pretty much, yeah.
It doesn't really matter. He
doesn't really-
he orchestrated the murder one way or
Right,
another.
exactly. Okay.
And then for the last
This is a real
murder,
photon torpedo moment we're having.
I guess I assumed that he was in the will, and he also had like power of attorney and like
Yes, I agree.
all that kind of stuff. And then
Yep.
he just pulled the plug, basically. Like he's allowed to do that.
No, you're not allowed to pull an intubation tube out of someone's mouth. And I
You
don't
can't?
think I also don't believe that you personally, as power of attorney, can just actually pull the plug. I think you can make that decision with the doctor when the doctor's saying, hey, they're brain dead, they're not coming back, and they can medically pull the plug. Because again, pulling the plug is not actually pulling the plug. That's just a term. I'm in the medical device field here, guys. Let's just,
Let's say
like
let's say
intubation tubes don't go 2 feet down your throat. I mean, I know it was cool to see him like rip this tube out.
like it was
but-
a spine or something.
Yeah, but they're like this long. Like it just gets down there past your epiglottis. So that's all you got to do. So
Two things. One, this is the UK. You don't know. Maybe their tubes are longer.
they intubate deep in the UK. We want to get right into that first lung.
Right. And two, it's a movie that already didn't bother with like
Yeah,
investigating the Felix death. So I wouldn't read too far over.
It just felt like a really, again, the movie didn't care about how clumsy the death was. It just felt like a really clumsy way
Sure.
to take someone who's already dying. Like she seemed to be. Again, I don't know if he poisoned her also. If this is more of a long con kind of game.
Mhm. I read an article with some quotes from Emerald Fennell in it, and she says that there's actual answers to the father and the mother and what they died of, and they cut it out of the movie. And so they actually filmed how they died and just didn't feel like it was necessary to explain those things.
So do you think in the director's cut that Barry Keoghan also orchestrated the death of the father, or was he just waiting
Yeah.
for the father to die of?
I do.
Yeah, you think he was a part of it?
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
sound like there's going to be a director's cut.
Well, of
but
course there isn't.
If there was,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds like she's happy with the cut she made. So, but yeah, I think maybe that was the original intention, is for him to have a hand in every one of them, and then she realized, like, well, we'll let people decide whether he had a hand in the last two or if he waited it out.
Well, he definitely had a hand in the last one. He ripped a breathing tube out of her throat.
I mean, but she was headed that direction anyway, not to be harsh.
I
But-
like the swerve that the movie did right at the end, where when he runs into her in the coffee shop,
Mhm.
where my mind was going was that he was then going to seduce her, and that's how he was going to make his way back to Saltburn, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was going to seduce her, and then him and her would live in Saltburn. And I thought it was a swerve to then, no, he's just going to kill her. He's
I mean,
not interested in her at all.
he may have seduced her anyway to like get in the
Right.
will and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm imagining if
Right,
I
but
was
that wasn't the plan.
if I was completing this movie, the plan was he knew the father had died.
Right.
He orchestrated being in the coffee shop with her.
Yep.
He reintroduced himself to her life. Then you don't see a bunch, but during those years in between that and her on her deathbed, he becomes her live-in son's, slash lover.
Yeah, for sure.
Replacement son slash lover, and gets her to write him into the will for everything. And then she's on her deathbed and he speeds it up.
No, I totally agree with the goal of killing her, like getting her out of the way, and it's just him. What I'm saying is, like, when he first met her in the coffee shop, I thought his end goal was to seduce her and live in Saltburn with her.
Oh, but not to kill her.
Not to
Yes.
eventually.
I
kill
see
her.
what you're saying. Okay.
I
yeah.
hear you.
And then what did you think of the last scene?
Well, after the stuff we've already seen, the last scene didn't feel that provocative. It just felt like, let's just throw some more on the screen while we're at it.
I thought that there's 3 scenes in this movie that that go places. Let's definitely talk about the last one, but I also want to talk about
There's four
scenes.
scenes.
There's 4? Okay, I can only
There's
think
the
of 3, but
the bathtub, outside the window on the stairs.
Yeah, with the blood.
outside the window on the stairs. Let's get there. Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about the dancing at the end. I liked that scene, not because of the but because of the idea that like he has this big, he's now owns this big sprawling mansion, this fortune. Everybody else is gone. He can do whatever he wants. He's all alone doing it. Like, you don't even see the servants in the place anymore.
You're
I mean, we
up
don't
to
know if
Duncan.
he's fired all the servants at that point. But he is alone. He doesn't seem to bother him at all. But that's what I was thinking is like, yeah, you got it, but like, there's nobody there with you. But if you're a psychopath who kills people, maybe that doesn't bother you. I don't know. But I liked the artistry of what we were watching. I thought it was, for a guy dancing around naked, tastefully done for the most part.
He wasn't like
strategic.
humping any statues or anything like that. So
Yeah, I mean,
Appreciate
there were other scenes that were not tasteful
no, there were
with
not
with
at
male
all.
nudity in it, but that one was pretty tasteful. Well, how'd you guys react to it?
I mean, I was sort of off the movie by this point, so I was like, okay, we're gonna dance naked through this house.
Sure.
Cut the black. I'm out of here.
I was mostly just impressed with Barry Coogan's bravery to do that,
Yeah.
in a movie.
Absolutely. How much would it take, Zach? How much money?
10 or 29 million.
Yeah, either of those works.
Either of
No,
those
it's
were-
a serious question.
what's
Somebody
your,
says,
what's your floor?
name your price. You're going to replicate the scene with no
6 million.
preparation, meaning like you can't go work out for 6 months or whatever.
Oh, I wouldn't. I don't need to. 6 million.
Okay.
What about you, James?
I mean, I would probably do it for like 100 grand.
Yeah, I was thinking like $500,000. I could,
Wow,
yeah, dance naked
Yeah.
for a couple of minutes for
I mean-
$500,000. Totally, I would do that.
Who cares?
James for 100,000.
James is like, oh,
100,000?
James would pay you $100. Let him do it. So
I might start higher, but that's probably like my minimum.
that's your floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say my floor is $500,000.
All right. Well, I'm still at 6 million.
Well, your OnlyFans account will not take off anytime soon. So.
Hey, you set your own worth, man.
Yeah, and you're setting yours at 6 million. So good luck.
Okay,
all right,
let's talk about
so
what,
there's 3 other
the,
provocative scenes in this.
There's
Right.
4 others that I thought of.
4. Okay, well, I'm gonna say
let's go backwards since we started at the end
No,
anyway.
I disagree. I think we gotta go for. I think we gotta start from the beginning because I think they ramp them up.
Okay, so you're talking about the drain slurping scene?
So the bathtub's the first one. Zach, would you agree? Is the bathtub the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Set it up for somebody who hasn't seen the movie. Kyle,
And
explain
can we just
in
say this-
detail.
You're
Yeah,
now in the
what's
point of
happening.
no return as a listener
Yeah.
to this episode. Just stop listening if you have sensitive ears.
Yeah, because we're going in there and we.
Hey, James here, just with a little editing note. You heard Zach give you a warning right there, and he was serious. So if you have kids in the car listening, or other people around you with sensitive ears, or maybe you just don't want to hear three guys talk about explicit scenes from a movie, then you should probably skip this or save it for later when you can listen in private. That's it. You've been warned.
We're gonna set this whole thing up just to really paint a mental picture here. Right. So
We
you
don't need to
mentioned
paint that much of a mental picture.
we're going all in.
I don't know.
This is Cinereelists After Dark at this point.
It's a family podcast.
Not anymore, is it? No, not in this movie. All right. So we've already established that Felix and Oliver share a bathroom, right?
Right.
And there is a moment where Felix is taking a bath, and Oliver is watching him take this bath through the door. And Felix is enjoying himself in the bathtub, we can say.
Mm-hmm.
And Oliver's watching all of this. And that already is creepy. Then Felix gets out of the bathtub, drains the bath, and then Oliver comes in and essentially slurps up the bath water from the drain as it's the final moments are draining. And we're not talking like a quick little, this is like 30 seconds of him like slurping and licking this bathtub.
And being like erotically satisfied with this
exactly. Like he's definitely getting pleasure out of this.
Right.
Like as a visual, I found it squeamish because like it's gross, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a character moment, it all made sense to me because, like, again, I'm still in Talented Mr. Ripley mode at this point in the movie. I'm like, this is a pathetic loser who's obsessed with this guy and has obvious attraction to him and is a weirdo, so he's going to do all this stuff. So that it made sense to me in that moment. It was not comfortable to watch, but I got it. You guys?
Generally how I felt.
I just enjoyed my audience reaction to that.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were very affected by that scene.
Okay, yeah.
Same with me.
There
was lots of hiney tightening, I would say.
hiney tightening. See, here in the Midwest, our hiney's already pretty tight already, so we're just
Sure.
No. The second one is I guess you could say the sex scene with Venetia. Did I skip one?
No.
No.
Okay. So I'm gonna get into a little bit, people. Just so if you got sensitive ears, like Zach said, point of no return. Yeah. So in this case, he's seducing Venetia. It's like on a bench outside his window.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And he goes to, I'll be so clinical, manually pleasure her.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, and she is on her period, and that doesn't bother him. And
Right.
There's a lot of exchanging of various bodily fluids through that scene. That moment for me, I felt like Emerald Fennell was just trying to, it felt like an edgelord thing to me. Like, I'm just going to see how far I can push this movie. And this is a point where I didn't quite see the Oliver character as being that good at being a manipulator, which you guys saw this as differently. So that moment to me, I thought it was provocative just for the sake of being provocative. It didn't really do a lot to the story. It was gross. And I didn't believe the Oliver character in that moment.
See, at that point in the movie, Venetia had already pegged him as the guy of the summer.
Yeah.
Like just another guy, just another follower of Felix's that's, that I can toy around with as well. And they're going to be harmless. They're going to disappear by the end of the summer. And he's making it known that like he is not that guy. Like he has his own agendas and ideas and that she has him wrong, I would say.
Yeah. And the scene before, her mom had told him that she's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And he likes controlling people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see him as the controller at that point.
He
Right,
seemed
but
pretty
they're
in
leading
control.
you into that
I know.
direction.
I know.
Yeah.
I see that. I mean, but what do you guys think? Just besides like what the scene was saying, how'd you feel about like the actual visceralness of what was happening? Did that seem necessary, or did that inform anything or make the movie any better? Or does that just seem edgy?
I thought there was a reason for it. I think okay, let's say you take out the fluids of it all,
Yeah.
right? I think it probably still would have been an effective scene
Mhm.
if they were talking other fluids, but the fact that it's that fluid, knowing where the movie goes, especially like that character goes, where both of them end up is also like a similar fluid. And I think there's something to be had there. Zach?
Well, so what I think is that he won't make an impact on her whatsoever if they just have a sexual encounter. Because apparently she does this all the time. Okay. So one, he has to like really make an impact too. And then second, it informs us about his character in that there is nothing he's not willing to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Which to be honest, I didn't connect in the moment. But like as the movie goes on, you're like, that's why he was doing that weird stuff that everybody was cringing through. You know what I mean? Like it made more sense later, but in the moment I was just like, what is going on? Because before that moment, to me, that's kind of the turning point of the movie, where that's the first time you realize, oh, he just does stuff to control people. At that point, you start questioning some of the things he's talked about in his past and like who exactly he is and why he's there, type of thing. Because that's the first time in the movie that the bathwater thing, I believe, had already happened, but that's just
correct.
him doing it behind closed doors because, like you said, he's kind of a guy that's just, as presented, obsessed with Felix so far. When he starts manipulating the sister, you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's not just a Felix thing. Maybe there's more to this. Then there's the funeral scene.
Is it the grave?
No.
Is that the next one, or are we skipping one?
The
Zach?
cousin.
The cousin.
Oh, the cousin.
What happened to the cousin?
Remember he goes into the bedroom with the cousin. He kind of climbs on top of him, and he is also pleasuring the cousin while kind of telling the cousin what to do. It's similar to Venetia, in the control thing, but not as I think not as viscerally gross.
Yeah, I think that one didn't really make an impact on me just because it was extreme. And also the cousin's already like very resistant to him, I would say. He gives in for a moment in that scene, but for the most part, he stays resistant to him. Yes? No?
And the cousin doesn't lock his phone?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Then you get the graveyard scene.
Zach, anything to add to the cousin scene?
No, but the graveyard scene, that scene I thought was gratuitous. That I felt like it was really obvious what was going to happen way before it was.
The minute he unbuttoned his shirt, you're like, you knew where this is going. That moment felt more in line with the pathetic Oliver than the manipulative Oliver. But I think the actual scene, like it would have been fine if they had cut away 15 seconds before that. Right.
Sure.
Like I could, him sobbing, him shirtless, whatever. But like the scene just kept going until it went to its obvious conclusion.
I'm not sure you even needed, I think you could have had him crying on the grave and that would have been enough for me. I'm not sure we needed like the full Monty happening.
I think like the starting to take clothes off part made sense because again, it's still this kind of weird obsession he has. They just kept going they kept taking it, and that seemed too much. Zach, you agree that it was?
Yeah, it felt way too much.
Okay.
I did like the idea though of it showing like the two. I think it also supports the motivation of the film or like the progression of the film where like he did not intend for that to be the result from the beginning of the movie. Like he actually liked Felix. Both loved him as a love interest and also was attracted to him. And so both of those are represented in that scene for sure. Yep. He's crying and into it at the same time. And so I don't know how else you visually represent that, but that was the most obvious way and they went with it, I would say. I don't know. I was okay with it in the moment, but it was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was too much. It was too much.
Okay. Too much for Kyle.
Well, I mean, like it No, I'm not like, oh, my stars. Like
Right.
it just seems I have nothing. I've nothing wrong with a movie being provocative and pushing things if it seems to serve a greater purpose to the movie.
Right.
But once it's been established and we're just pushing it for the sake of pushing it, then it gets gratuitous, and then I'm turned off by it. So
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
like I think we can all agree after seeing Promising Young Woman that Emerald Fennell seems to be a provocative filmmaker, at least based on the one movie we've seen before this.
Yeah, I mean, these two combined, I would say, are not easy watches.
Right.
They're not
They're not
safe.
Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
No.
They're not safe movies. I think she's proud. She feels like she's making what she wants,
Mhm.
what she would have wanted to have seen, maybe. Yeah, that's fine. I like directors who don't mind going out on a limb, even if it doesn't always work. For sure. All right. Anything else? Spoiler on Saltburn.
No.
All right. Anybody changing their star rating? Kyle, is it going up?
Nope. It's going to stay
Still at
at
a
2. I feel
Still
very
at a 2.
comfortable with 2. Yep.
All right.
This is not Bo is Not Afraid of territory. I like this movie more than Bo is Not Afraid. He'll be rated higher than that one. So,
Are you sure it's rated higher? Or you're guessing it's rated
Oh, I
higher?
know.
You know. You
I know,
remember what
yes.
you gave Bo is Afraid.
oh yeah, I for a movie that I did not like at all, Bo is Not Afraid is, or whatever it's called, is burned in my brain. Like that's a movie I'm not gonna forget for a while. So kudos to Bo is Afraid for that. This movie, very similar. Not gonna
What
forget
was
this movie.
What was the name of that Miranda July movie that Kyle didn't like?
Oh, Me and You and Everyone We Know.
No. The one that came out during the course of this podcast.
It's a heist, whatever. It's a con movie.
It's called like
Kajillionaire.
Kaleidoscope. Yeah.
Kajillionaire.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is like the Kajillionaire of this year.
Yeah, I think Kajillionaire, I respected parts of it,
Mm-hmm.
but on a
Kyle,
whole, I didn't care for it.
In general, do you not like it when movies get weird?
No, I don't mind weird.
What's a weird movie you like?
Like the Weird Al movie. I know it's
That's
got the
not
word
weird. No,
I know
no,
it's got
no.
the word weird.
That
in
has
it.
weird in the title.
Okay, like is Annihilation a weird movie? Would you say?
Yeah, I would say
Okay,
that's a weird
I like
movie.
Annihilation. That's a weird movie.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing
The Weird Al movie.
there's sci-fi weird, I would say, in that movie. You like Fight Club, which I know is a very mainstream movie, but it's a weird movie.
Right.
Like it's not a normal movie, I would say.
I think I don't like, and I mean, I don't want to get into arguing Miranda July because we already had this discussion 2 years ago. I don't like it when movies, at least to me, seem weird for weird's sake.
And this felt like that.
And this, you're right. When you get to unmotivated weird, or like, let's just be weird because why not? At that point, I'm like, why are we doing this right now?
Gotcha.
So if I can watch the movie and see the weird thing and be like, oh, well, this makes sense because Natalie Portman in Annihilation is blah, 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 then I'm okay with it. If I'm watching it and there's just, I don't know, suds coming out the walls because they live next to like a bubble factory or whatever it was in Kajillionaire, I'm like, okay, this is why is it a bubble factory next door?
Sure.
It's got to be somewhere.
Exactly. What does it have to be? Do we need to manufacture bubbles?
Yeah. How else are they going to get made? All right. Anything else? Saltburn. Are we completely done?
I think I've got nothing else to say about this movie.
All right.
I could still talk about it, but I want to get to our list.
Me too.
Well, it already happened, Zach.
I want to revisit it.
Okay.
Retrospective.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.